All right. So we are going to do a little week in review, you guys. I'm going to go over some of the posts I've done on FB over the past couple days and kind of tie that into what's going on with health and nutrition and fitness, etc. So I wanted to start off by going over this post right here. Hopefully you guys can hear it on your end, but I'll walk you through it. This is just a little thing that I put together about breaking fast. So this is probably my go-to for morning breakfasts. I'd say 90% of the time. It's really basic egg white omelet with a little bit of cheese in there. I throw in a little bit of sausage. Then you fold it over on itself. Make sure you put it on a wood cutting board. That's key right there. I throw some avocado on this thing and a little bit of Celtic sea salt right there. And it gets the thumbs up, the approval right there. So a lot of people are, I put a little poll out on Facebook the other day, and a lot of people just, they don't know what to eat. They don't know what to cook. They're just completely lost. This is such a simple way to get a good amount of protein in and a good amount of, not a lot of calories, but it keeps it pretty calorically, uh, I guess you could say flexible. So obviously, if you want more calories and more protein, you add more egg whites. If you want to tone it back, you can tone it back. So this is a very basic dish that gets a ton of mileage, is how I'm gonna put it. Next post I wanted to go over with you guys, and this is my new kind of modus operandi, is being a donut slapper. Slap that donut out of your hands. So I'll read the post to you guys and then kind of break it down. Donut slapper. I use the donut as a metaphor for all junk food. Donuts should be slapped out of your hand and replaced with a healthy alternative. Chocolate covered donuts with sprinkles from Dunkin' Donuts contain over 60 ingredients. And no, that's definitely not a typo. I looked it up. I actually sent that out on my email. There are over 60 ingredients in a donut, and a lot of those are unpronounceable. Um, it's loaded with sugar, seed oil, corn syrup, and a host of other inflammatory additives and toxins, not to mention packing a caloric and macro punch of 270 calories. So one donut, 270 calories, 36 grams of total carbohydrates. Out of those 36, 15 of those are coming from carbs from sugar. So that's pretty high in sugar. 15 grams is really high. And then 12 grams of unhealthy fat, primarily coming from seed oil. So these guys are not, they should not be consumed. And it's really kind of a, like I said, I use them as a metaphor, but it's really, it speaks to the volumes of the standard American diet. So this nuclear bomb, if you will, of calories and toxic sludge is basically a normal meal for people hooked on the standard American diet. This is breakfast for probably, I wouldn't say a majority of people, but a fair amount of people are going to eat this or something like this on a daily basis. And unfortunately, eating large quantities of junk is socially acceptable and encouraged. And people don't see it as destructive or addictive, I think, as they should. It's just one of those things that, hey, it's socially acceptable. It's in the office. It's in our churches. People just don't see the potency of this garbage food. So by feeding ourselves and our children highly addictive garbage, we are poisoning our heart, our mind, our body, and our soul. So next time you catch yourself with a donut in your hand, slap that thing out of there ASAP. And yeah, it's I'm being a little hyperbolic by calling it donut slapping and get that out of your mouth as soon as you can. But am I? I mean, it's one of those things where these types of foods are literally poisoning us and our children and our basically our entire culture. And it's our culture is basically constructed on this. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard the theme from Dunkin' Donuts. It's America runs on Dunkin', and this food is just absolute garbage. I'm not going to talk about this one or this one. That's me swinging the mace. I will talk about this one next because this is kind of some overlap here, and this one flows with the donut slapping. I should call it booze flushing. So a drink a day, one drink a night after work or with your dinner doesn't sound like a big deal. If you have bought into this notion that consuming a moderate amount of alcohol is harmless, you've been tricked and are doing a disservice to your health. Let's break this down. One beer contains 100, almost said 1,000, 150 empty calories, and wine is about 120. So if you multiply this by 365, that's 54,750 calories worth of beer and 43,800 calories of wine. That is a lot of calories. That's a massive caloric hit just to quote unquote unwind from work. So next time you pop the top or unscrew the cork, consider the amount of empty junk calories that you are putting into your body, not to mention all the other poor decisions and mistakes that are made all in the name of just a few drinks. I've said it before, which I always get a ton of pushback on, and I'll say it again. Alcohol equals a goal killer, or alcohol is a goal killer. It is remarkable whenever I put this out online, when I say alcohol equals goal killer, that people will actually try and push back against that, and they'll try and justify their drinking and their boozing as it's okay. And that mentality, that I guess it's almost like a what am I looking for? Diffraction, deferral, that kind of just like, hey, passing the buck, so to say, on your habits and your addiction, and like, ah, it's not that bad. Well, of course it's not that bad. You're justifying it to yourself that it's not that bad. But look at the amount of calories that's consuming, and how many people stop at one. There's probably people that drink 3 to 4 to a whole bottle of wine or a handful of beers. Maybe not every night, but even if you did that a couple days a week, you're still going to get over 365 drinks on an annual basis. And that is a lot of calories to be putting down your throat. So I will stand by my statement where alcohol equals goal killer. And I get it. It's not like everyone's an alcoholic and has a drinking problem. There's few people that drink socially, and you can get away with consuming booze, maybe once a month, once every other month, you have a couple of drinks. But if you're revolving your entire life and your entire social circle around booze, it's time to take a long, hard look at why. And that's what you got to kind of bring it down to. Why am I participating in this form of escapism? Why am I participating in this cheap dopamine hit? And it is a cheap dopamine hit. And I was talking about this in my men's group, my Forged by Faith men's group, the other day. And there's a difference between cheap dopamine and expensive dopamine. And cheap dopamine is what you get, that feeling you get from getting drunk, getting high, um, shopping, gambling, playing video games, vaping, smoking weed. That's cheap dopamine. That's escapism, but it's cheap dopamine that you can just sit back and escape instantly. Then you have expensive dopamine, which usually is constructed around the physical, mental, and spiritual aspects. The physical one being training. Yes, it's hard to work out. It's hard to push yourself out of your comfort zone, whether it's just lifting weights or running, or you're doing a CrossFit style, high intensity interval training, Metcon. That's going to be expensive dopamine because you have to put in the work. When you're done with it, however long that duration is, then you feel better afterwards. And that is an expensive dopamine hit. So not all dopamine is bad. It's one of those things where you just have to choose the type of dopamine that you're fueling, I should say, funneling into your brain and your body. Other challenging dopamine hits or expensive dopamine hits: going to church, reading the Bible, praying, going to fellowship. Those are all expensive dopamine hits. Expensive dopamine hit would be you undertake a college course, or you go to college, or you get your master's degree and you work your butt off, and then you finally graduate, or you pass the course or the test or whatever it might be. That's an expensive dopamine hit that requires action. And then upon completion, you feel better. When you read a book and you're putting good stuff into your brain, or you're consuming good content that might better your life, that's an expensive dopamine hit that takes action, um, that takes you doing something. Being proactive towards bettering yourself is always going to have an expensive dopamine hit associated with it. So that's my little rant on alcohol and dopamine. Choose your fix, choose your um, habits wisely. And then lastly, I wanted to touch on this one. This is everyday foods versus once a month foods. You guys can see again, I'm highlighting the donut here, steak versus donut. There are foods you can eat every day that will have ill effects on your overall health. Sorry, let's start that again. There are foods you can eat every day that have no ill effects on your overall health. Single ingredient, nutrient dense foods centered around quality proteins, non inflammatory carbohydrates, and healthy fat. Then there are foods you should only be eating once in a great while. Highly processed junk laden with sugar, seed oils, gluten, and toxic chemicals. Those are once a month foods right there. Not once a day, once a month foods right there, or not at all. Instinctively, we know the difference between the two. However, we seldomly follow common sense and eat healthy. Our consumption driven, high paced, ultra lazy culture by design fuels an unhealthy lifestyle. Combating the health crisis we are facing today requires a simplified approach to nutrition. Eat like this: high protein and healthy fat centric with minimal carbohydrate intake. Eliminate and avoid bread, booze, beer, sugar, soy, seed oils, donuts, again, pizza, pasta, tacos, nachos, candy, cookies, soda, and all fast food. Basically, ditch all processed junk as if your life depends on it, which it does. So, this is just common sense, you guys. The foods on this list right here, you could literally eat. I asterisked the carbs right here, but the foods on the protein, on the fat side, you could literally every day without any ill effects to your metabolism or your health. Now, if you are adding carbohydrates and you are focused on a non-inflammatory carb approach, that's fine. You just got to be aware calorically those foods on that list pack a punch. So, big picture wise, you know what to eat. These are everyday foods that you can eat pretty much every single day that are not going to destroy your metabolism, get you overweight. They'll keep your energy up. You'll feel good. You'll sleep better. All sorts of good stuff comes from eating everyday foods. Flip side of the coin, avoid this junk. Pizza. Yes, I put bread on the list. Pasta, donuts, soda, cake, cookies, chips, candy bars, french fries, fast food. This is stuff that you very, very seldomly want to push down your throat. And the reason being, I highlighted it earlier, was donuts have 60 plus ingredients in them. Soda, fewer ingredients, but still, it's not healthy for you. Pizza, if you were to make your own pizza at home, out of sourdough like I do for my kids every Friday night and use real fresh ingredients, not nearly as bad as that junk you're going to get at Domino's Pizza. Same thing with bread. If you go to the store and get some bread just off the shelf in a bag, how long is that thing going to last? It's going to last a couple weeks. The bread I make for my family with sourdough starter is usually stale, if not growing mold within 3 to 4 days. So you got to eat it fast. And you guys can obviously draw a comparison to pretty much anything on this list here of it being laced with chemicals and toxic junk that we're not supposed to eat. Um, this is the direction you should be eating every single day. And I really believe people know the food to eat and the food to avoid. They just choose not to do it. And this comes down to those social pressures. Food being socially acceptable, junk food being socially acceptable, booze being socially acceptable. And these foods are in the long run just going to completely wreck your metabolism if they haven't already. That's the outlook we want to have on this. Once a month foods, as you see on the list here, versus everyday foods. And there is an instinctual, I believe, discernment between the two slides here. We know that candy is not good for us. We know that candy bars and cookies and donuts and soda and all this stuff on here is not good for us on a daily basis. Yet, as a culture and a society, we eat it every day. And then we know that eating beef and good quality fruits and maybe fish or eggs, and then throwing in some healthy avocado in there, those are good quality meals that you're going to be putting into your mouth right there. Let me see. Is there anything else I wanted to go over? I'll save that one for next time. All right, you guys, that's all for now on kind of week in review.